Hey, it's Hammer Time.
Very special episode of Hammer Time. We have a guest from Washington, D.C., Shoshana Weissmann. Not to put pressure, but the last guest that we had from D.C. was Steve Moore. And now he's not going to be nominated or has been nominated for the Fed.
I'm a senator, so it's fine.
You are a senator. Okay, so let's start with that. You have tens of thousands of Twitter followers. It grows by the minute. Are you a real senator?
In my head, no. When I was younger, I wanted to be a senator. I got into politics. I really liked it, and now I would never want to be an elected official. So that's out. That's out of the question. But it's always fun when people think I'm a senator.
Well, that denial means your hat's going to be in the arena somewhere. We'll have to figure out which. Do you live in the District of Columbia?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Regulatory reform.
Yes.
This has been a passion of yours. Could you describe why?
So I'm a giant nerd, and that is a large part of it. But it all started with realizing that regulations get in the way of people and their jobs, and people and things that the government shouldn't be involved with. There's so much creativity out there, and it's really frustrating to see government stifle it. It also started with, you're going to laugh, but my passion for original meaning originalism and judicial engagement, which, long story short, I really believe that our rights that aren't written down in the Constitution matter. They matter, and we can't ignore them, and courts ignore them, state legislators ignore them, regulators ignore them, and I care very much about economic liberty. I get to do what I love for a living, and I want everyone to be able to do that.
Is that the work of our street? Can you talk a little bit about, is regulatory reform?
Kind of. So we do a lot of regulatory reform in different areas, whether it be energy or insurance reform is a big thing we do.
Okay.
It's been a years-long passion of mine. I cared about it at past jobs when I worked at the Weekly Standard. And now at our street, I came in and my colleague and I got together and we're like, want to do licensing reform? So we just decided to go ahead and do it.
I'm definitely going to talk to you a little bit about licensing reform, and one of the reasons I believe you're out here. And part of it may just be the Arizona Chamber of Commerce weather. I don't know. But regulatory reform is super important. I mean, you take a look at this red hot economy in Arizona and on the national level, and I would argue what's happened in Washington D.C. and we'll get back to Arizona in a minute. But the twin policies of regulatory reform and tax reform, I believe, have just put the national economy on fire.
Absolutely, and we need more of it. The Trump administration has certainly done some good, and so has Congress and Senate, but we need more of it because they're always adding regulations on the national level. There's this great Twitter handle called Crime a Day, and the guy is hilarious, but it shouldn't be funny because these are real regulations. Stuff like the tiniest things are federal crimes, and that ties into so many different other kinds of issues. It causes problems in our justice system, we need to do less of that. So I'm glad that the Trump administration has taken the lead. I just want to see more of that.
Dialing us back to the great state of Arizona, we have probably the greatest, I would argue easily the greatest deregulatory governor in the country, and Governor Ducey. You may be talking, and we've been operating under a regulatory moratorium since day one, and that's good, but that hasn't been enough. I believe he's also rolled back about 1,000 regulations. You maybe talk about the three most important regulatory activities in the state of Arizona from your vantage point.
So he's done a lot of work that I really like. I think this one may be my favorite, opening up the borders so that people from other states can come here and work. That's so cool. We've been trying to do that at the national level in a bunch of different ways, all that respect federalism. Some of it is just facilitating state compacts, not real government actions, but government helping, kind of, all voluntary. So I love that. I think that's huge. I want every state to do it. One of my other favorite ones, this was a couple of years ago, but I had no idea that states hired lobbyists to lobby itself. That was dumb, and I'm glad he got a lot of that to stop. That's saving taxpayer money, and it's getting government to do its job better, so I'm a huge fan there. And also appointing really good judges. That matters. Clint Bolick is fantastic. I'm a fan of his, and not only is he the nicest person, but he's a fantastic jurist. Ducey is basically just taking all the things I wish I could think of and doing them. So I'm a huge fan of his.
Well, your points on the court are very, very important, and we're certainly big supporters of, I've known Justice Bolick for many years. I knew him in the school choice context many years ago when I was an intern. I felt like during the Eisenhower administration at this point. But you're right about the importance of getting the right people on the court so that they're not making the laws or creating all sorts of new obstacles for the job creators.
And that he takes our rights seriously. He's not, oh, government did it, so whatever, or legislative intent, so they can do anything. He puts the stops that are supposed to be there. I love all the work he's done throughout his life. And when I saw Ducey appoint him a couple of years ago, I was just on cloud nine.
Getting back to occupational reform, so you see all what's happening in all 50 states. We're the first state. Arizona's the first state, correct? That has basically, as I like how you put it. How'd you put it? That we've opened the border, basically?
Yeah, and you make it so that people can move here. It's kind of insane that states stop people from moving to them. You know, they'll be taxpayers, which I know government will like. But also, you want to attract people to the state. Every state talks about that. Ducey's the one doing it the best. I wish we had a Governor Ducey in every state, but science doesn't allow for that yet. But once it does, that would be great. But his reforms are fantastic, and he really cares about people. He and I have had many conversations wherein he just talks about how he wants to help people. He wants people to be able to help themselves and get government out of the way. He was able to pursue his dreams. I was able to pursue mine. And I'm just lucky it wasn't licensed, because who knows if I would have passed the tests.
Well, I know one of the things that he's worked on very successfully is and one of the things that I think really got him interested, even more interested in this area, was we have about 600,000 or 700,000 veterans in the state.
Yeah.
And the issue of military spouses and coming into the state and not having the opportunity to work. So occupational licensing is it's a very practical, real issue for people, particularly those that have served in our military.
It's heartbreaking when you hear about military spouses moving with their members across state lines, because that's natural, and that the government requires it of them, and then they punish them when they move to the state. It's sadistic, and it's super wrong. And I always go against the federal tie and Commerce Clause. It's like, yes, you can do anything with Commerce Clause, but to raise a military, we have to make sure that they're able to keep their salaries, that their spouses are able to work. So there have been a couple of federal solution ideas. There's going to be some more coming forth, which is really exciting. But
could you give any sneak peeks there? I know that with federalism there could be some challenges, but I love
not yet. But I think everyone's going to like it. It's a very good solution that I'm really excited about. So in the coming weeks, people will be able to see that. And there have been others too. Some states have made some military spouse licensing reforms, which is great, but it should apply to everyone. It shouldn't just apply to them. That's of course better than nothing. But there have been so many cases where a spouse moves with their husband or wife and they can't work anymore. You know, what kind of country do we live in where we're going to say, oh, serve your country, do that, and then your spouse can't work?
And I also think for other populations, victims, I mean, the more liquidity you have in any market, the better everyone is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's strange that states want to get in the way of it. Of course, we understand the licensing board dynamics, and a lot of them mean well for sure, but it still hurts people.
Well, and we're dealing in a state, I mean, our economy is red hot. We have more jobs than people to fill them. So, you know, as the governor said, we've had about 100,000 people that moved here the last year, and we want to make it as easy for them to get to work.
Yeah, and I get why people are moving here. Ducey's been fantastic. I hope that someone can even attempt to follow his lead after he's not governor anymore one day, which I still hate to think about because he's doing such great work. But I want other states to do this. The bill he signed today, I want other states to do that, because if every state had a bill like this would help so many military spouses. It would help people who want to move just for their families or for reasons not related to the military. I'm tired of seeing government get in the way of people's lives.
No, and I bet this will be another Arizona reform, and we've seen this with charter reform in other areas where Arizona's taken the lead. Couple of final questions.
Sure.
You're a digital media expert.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that area and where you see things going? It all seems to be going digital these days.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people talk about how awful Twitter is, how everything's toxic online, but it doesn't have to be. I'm a natural fangirl. I find gratitude very cathartic. It's only something I've been able to verbalize recently, but that's basically what it is. And Jonah Goldberg has spoken about this, and he's talked about it in his books before, but I like showing affection for people. Wow, what you're doing is great. You're a great person. Even your dress is nice.
Is this an Arthur Brooks? I mean, I know he's talked about loving your enemies.
I'm very into that as well. I think they're right. I know people are like, oh, hippies stuff, but it works, and it's true. You want to be able to make those one-on-one connections with people. If you just turn people off, you're going to have no support for anything. So a lot of my work revolves around making sure I don't turn people off. I don't say words that they don't like and make them stop listening. And there are words like that. Sometimes it's Republican and Democrat. Other times it's even regulatory reform. It's like, oh, you just don't want to protect people or something. So I try to make the real connections, use the stories to connect them. Brooks talks about it, Jonah Goldberg talks about it, and all that stuff is really important. And while there's a lot of toxic stuff online, whether it's politicians, whether it's like clickbait news or whatever, you can still be better than that. I like to think I am. I'm not perfect. I mean, I am. No, I'm kidding. But I think people need to make that real attempt to praise the good and not just condemn the bad.
Well, that's one of the reasons we have Chamber Business News, because it's real news and it's not fluff. It tells a story, but without some of the tilt that's in some other outlets.
Yeah. Final
question. Would love any books or any things that people watching the program should be watching.
Oh my gosh. So I have a long reading list. I think I have like 50 books on it so far, and those aren't all the ones I've read. Some didn't deserve to be on the list. No, but anything by Randy Barnett. I always tell people to start with Clark Neely's Terms of Engagement. It's such a good book to get the foundations for this stuff and not the deep stuff, but here's basically why it matters. And I think once you start there, there's so much. Everything Arthur Brooks has written, Jonah Goldberg, I love them. And also just read. People don't read enough, I like to think. My dad hated when I was little and I didn't like to read. Then I found constitutional law and I'm like, oh, this is great.
All right, well, I'm making sure that my girls see that portion, because I say just read, and then keep reading and don't
Definitely.
stop. And it's a lifelong thing. And it'll
Absolutely.
serve. Shoshana Weissmann, thank you so much for joining the show from D.C. and sharing your thoughts. And I'll just tell you, we will always roll out the red carpet for you in Arizona.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.